Hello guys, this is Exile, and I'm here with another tutorial. This one's probably not going to apply to that many people, because I don't think that many people are going to be doing this, but this is going to be a guide for building the Android open source project for pretty much any Nexus device. Doesn't matter if it's the Nexus 6, but that's what I'm going to use for my example today, because that's what I have. But this will work for any Nexus device, at least it should, because those are naturally supported by Google, so there's no porting involved. I don't know how to do any of that, although there's tons of guides, and I'm sure it's not that bad, especially for devices that have already been out for a bit. But basically, if you own like a Nexus 4, Galaxy Nexus, anything, you can pretty much make your own ROM. So yeah, for anyone who's interested in that, I guess keep watching. And basically I made this tutorial because I mean, once again, like, I was kind of like reading these guides and stuff, and some things just confused me. And now that I've actually done it, like a few times actually, I mean, I'm still terrible. I mean, I'm still like working on my first ROM, but I had to set it up a few times, and now that I've actually done it a few times, it's not really as bad, and like I feel like I could explain it a little better and maybe help some people. So let's get going. So obviously the first thing you're gonna have to do, well, I guess actually it's probably not obvious, but you can't, at least to my knowledge, build Android on a on Windows. You can, you just can't do it straight from Windows. So you're gonna have to make what we call a virtual box. And it's kind of like running, and you have to run, actually you can do it on Mac too, I'm pretty sure. But most people do it on Windows, and then they run a virtual box, which is basically like making it so you can run another operating system within your Windows, essentially. It's actually not that hard to set up. You would be very surprised. There's tons of guys to set that up. But to make this easier, there's a couple of distributions of Linux. If you're familiar with Linux, this is piece of cake, but a lot of people aren't, so I'll go over it real fast. Basically, there's Linux, and then there's tons of different kinds of like distributions of it, is what they call it, like Ubuntu, Debian, yeah, I'm sure Arch Linux. I'm sure you've heard of all these if you've ever been around that kind of stuff. So that's just different distributions. They're all slightly different. Some are based on others, stuff like that. But there's a few people out there making distributions, what do you call it, specifically for building ROMs, and it comes pre-installed with all like the tools you need and everything, so you don't even have to set stuff up really. So I highly recommend two of them I've tried. Barbecue Linux is what I'm running. You can see it right up here. Actually, I don't even know if this is screen captured up here, but yeah, it's called BBQ Linux, and I'm pretty sure I got it on XDA. And it's based on Arch Linux. It's supposed to be like fast, and I like it so far. It came pretty much installed with everything you need, so you don't really have to do a lot of these steps in this guide. And I'm going to use this guide as like kind of a reference, because even I don't have this memorized, but I'm just going to kind of try and explain things as we do them. And another one is Build Ubuntu. It's based on Ubuntu, and it has the same thing, everything built in. That's probably a little easier, because a lot of guides and stuff are for Ubuntu, not Arch, which has a different package manager. So I would recommend Build Ubuntu. So anyways, let's go. So this is assuming you've got your VirtualBox set up. You are ready to go. That's pretty much all you need to do. Once you've got that ready, then we can start. So first thing you want to do is you're going to need to install Java. And I'll link this page and the other pages I use in the description. But if you have one of those distros I mentioned, it'll come with all this stuff already done, so you won't have to do any of this. But you're going to want to do this. You literally just copy and paste that in the command line, which for Ubuntu you do Control-Alt-T. Let me open up my command line. There we go. Put that over there. And so basically, let me get to our folder that I made. There we go. I'm not going to do this because I've already got it installed, so there's no point. But you would literally just go like this, copy, and then, oh, this mouse I have is terrible, paste, and then you just click enter and it'll do its thing. Obviously it's different for Arch Linux though, because it does not use apt. Okay, so I'm going to assume you've done this now, because most of you won't even have to do that. So the next thing you have to do is add the repo command. And like a brief description of the repo command is, I mean, you're going to probably want to get yourself familiar with GitHub. I just started doing that as I did this too, but it's actually simpler than you think. Basically this, it like grabs tons of different GitHub repos all at once, because that's how people upload them. I'll use Optipop as an example. So you can see here under Optipop they have a build repo, framework space repo, Bionic repo, vendor, manifest, keeps going, right? If you wanted to normally just use a literally just straight GitHub, you would have to manually pull or manually clone each one of these one by one. What the repo does is it just grabs all of them you need for your specific device all at once, and saves you a ton of time. Oops, wrong one. Alright. So basically this installs the command for you. So you're going to just want to copy paste that. If you're using one of the ones I mentioned, they're already going to have the bin folder made. So you don't want to run this command because it's going to tell you it can't do that because it already exists. So you just want to copy and paste from here down. Alright. Next thing you want to do is, I have actually no clue what this part does, but I do it. On Build Ubuntu, it's already done for you. You don't even have to worry about it. On Barbecue Linux, I believe you have to do this. Gedit, I think that's how you say it. That's like a text editor kind of thing, and basically this just tells it to open this file, .bashrc, and then at the bottom you just literally copy and paste this. I don't know what it does, don't really care as long as it works. Next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to run git config this, and then you're going to want to put in your email here. I believe you're supposed to put the quotes around it. At least that's what I did, and I didn't have any issues. So you run that. So I will do that. Actually, I've already done this, so there's no point. But those just basically identify you if for whatever reason makes you do it, so you have to do this. The next part, and you don't have to like make an account or anything. You just put in your email and whatever you want to be called. I don't really get it, but you have to do that. Anyways, this is basically the part where you start making your directory, and that's what mkdir stands for, make directory, and the squiggle always takes you back to the home folder. If you're not running as super user, which you have to type in su space or su and then enter, and that'll ask you to put your password in. Then you'll be running as basically root, which means your squiggly line thing will be wherever your root folder is. So you don't need to do that though, so just don't worry about it. So basically you're going to do this, you name this whatever you want. It's going to put a folder in your home folder. I name mine tutrom, and that's just in my home folder. Then you do cd squiggly line thing, whatever you named it. So I would do, like I just showed you, cd tutrom, and now you can see I'm in the tutrom folder, and that stands for change directory. Next thing you're going to do, and this is where you actually start getting into making the ROM, is you're going to do repo init and then all this garbage. And I'll break this down real fast. This basically calls the repo command, and it tells it to initiate in the folder you're in, which would in my case be tutrom. I actually don't remember what that stands for, but I'm assuming it's important, so put that there. This tells it where the repo it's looking for is. Then B tells it which branch, and for as of right now, the latest is Android 5.0.2 R1. And depending on where you're, the steps are very similar if you want to do CyanogenMod. So you have to figure out which branch. Their current branch is CM-12.0. So that's what you'd put here, and then you would have to change this to whichever one. They have their own wiki and everything, so it's actually really easy. So you're going to do this. So I'll do this real fast. Oh, gosh, this mouse is terrible. I was using a different one, but it was just like a little laptop mouse, and I had it plugged into the front, but I ran out of ports, so I had to plug my headset in for this, so I had to unplug my mouse. So I'm using this garbage mouse now, but it'll have to work. Alright, so I pasted this in, click enter, and basically it's going to lock this folder to this repository. So it knows my identity, because I've already done that part earlier. Knows all that stuff. And this, I don't really know what this is. I guess it's just showing everything that's going to sync. Then you literally just do repo sync. And you can tweak this a little bit. If you're doing CyanogenMod, they don't want you to tweak this because it has some parameters built in. But what most people are going to want to do is -J4. And that basically tells it can use 4 threads. So if you have a quad-core processor, you're going to want to do that. It'll speed it up a little bit. If you set it too high, you might run into issues where it'll disconnect and say, like, failed to sync or whatever. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's my internet or what, but every time I do this, I always get disconnected like once or twice during the sync. But it's okay. You just run the same command again, and it'll just pick up where it left off, check everything to make sure everything's downloaded, whatnot, and basically, you just run this command until it finishes without an error, and it takes a while. I mean, depending on your download speed, it takes several hours to download the source. It's something like 30 gigs, maybe more. So if you're doing this, you want to make sure you have, like, well, I would say 150 gigabytes of memory prior to starting. I started my first one, and I did it with 100, and I was getting close. I was at like 95. After doing some stuff. I don't even know how it got that high, but like then you build the ROM and that takes up like another couple gigs. Everything's just huge. So give yourself plenty of space wherever you're making your virtual hard drive. So we're going to run this command, and as you can see, it's just going to start basically downloading everything, and you're not going to see anything appear in the folder unless you do show hidden files. Now you can see it's in here, and stuff just starts going crazy in here. I don't really know what this all does, but like stuff basically just starts downloading in here. And then once it's all done, you'll see it show up. Now, this takes, like I mentioned, several hours depending on, and my internet speed's like 50 megabytes download, so I mean, I don't think it's taking advantage of that, but anyways, you should see something like this. Oops. Stupid mouse, it like double clicks sometimes when you single click and it doesn't right click. So basically, one of the things that messed me up is my first time, it kept erroring out while I was syncing, and like I was freaking out because I couldn't download it, and like I thought after like 2 hours and it errored out, I thought I had to start over. But if you just do repo sync again, it'll just pick up where it left off. So just don't panic. Just keep doing it. You can even do repo sync -F and then do your -J whatever 4. And the -F will basically just make it ignore any like disconnects it gets and just keep going anyways, but it might not download stuff. So then you're going to want to make sure after it finishes the with -F, you go back through just normal, no -F, and it'll pick up anything it left behind. And if it goes through and it finishes on a normal one, then you know it finished. So that's that. So obviously, I'm not going to wait for this, so I'm just going to use my existing ROM to kind of show you a few more things, how it'll look when you're done. So we're going to hit Control C. That sometimes doesn't work. That's to kill it. Oh wait, it's just a board. Whatever. We'll hit Control Z. Oh, you got to be kidding me. Stop. No, please. Alright, I'm just going to literally exit out of this thing. Oh. I hope that stops it, but who knows. Now what we're going to do is we're going to CD to my ROM, which is called Onyx. It's case sensitive, so make sure you get all that stuff right. I really hope that's not downloading in the background, but whatever. I don't really know how Linux works that well. So now we're assuming you've synced with the AOSP repository. So you've got all the files, and that should look like Let me go back. Should look something like this. You won't have these. I made these myself, and I'll explain those a little bit. And alright, let's see here first. So you got that. Now you're going to want to set up Ccache. If you have enough space, this will supposedly speed things up. So you basically run this command, go back to that bash rc. You have to add this to the bottom again. And then you're going to go back to your directory of your ROM, and you're just going to run this command. As far as I know, they recommend like 50 gigs. So if you have enough space, it's worth it. It's supposed to increase your your compile times, which for me are like close to 3 hours if I do a complete clean build, which I'll explain what the difference between clean and dirty and all that stuff is later. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to install the proprietary binaries. Now this is different if you're on Cyanogen, but this guide is for AOSP, so we're not going to cover that. But right here, basically you just click this link, and you're going to go to whichever device you have and whichever version of the software you're building for. So if you're on, well, we're going to use Nexus 6, and they might not have changed, so you're just going to want to use the latest one, whichever that is, because as you can see, 5.0.2 is out, but these binaries haven't changed since 5.0.1, so there's no need to get any different ones. Basically, you're going to download these, and then, I guess I'll show you. I've already done this, so I'll just download it real quick. You're going to download, click open. Now, you're going to see inside of this, there's going to be an extract broadcom-shamu.sh, shamu's Nexus 6 code name. You're going to go into whichever folder you have. You're just going to copy this. There it is. And each one of these is going to be like that. They're going to be a slightly different name, like whatever, Motorola, extract Motorola.shamu. And then you're going to go in here, and I'm not going to go through with this all the way, but I'll start it. And you're going to type bash, which you actually don't need to. I've seen people normally just do like a dash line, which I believe is the same thing, but bash runs an sh file. Extract dash broadcom-shamu.sh, and then it's going to pop up with something like this, license for whatever, because this is proprietary closed source stuff. That's why they can't package it in. Click enter, and then you just hold enter and you start scrolling through this. And you got to be careful, because if you scroll too far, it'll enter without saying you agree. So you just got to kind of go slow, and I believe the end comes near miscellaneous. Yeah. So it's like letter D, so you want to go real slow, like one enter at a time. You get here, it'll say you type I accept in all caps, just like they put it, no quotes. And then you click that, and it'll do some stuff, and it'll put all the files in the vendor file, I believe. So I'm not going to do it because I've already done it. So I'm going to hit Control Z and end that. Okay, so now we go back here, and again you have to do that for all. Let me go back real fast. You have to do that for all 3 of these, because it kind of tells you like media, audio, thermal, touch, sensors, stuff like that, GPS. So you need to download all 3 of these and run all 3 of them just like that. Alright. Now, you're going to, in the root folder of your, when I refer to root, that means the closest, like the top level. So as you can see here, if I go back, I go to my home folder. So this would be the root, the first folder you get into. Let me delete this real fast. Alright. So, you're going to want to run source build /envsetup.sh, and basically, I'll show you where this folder is. Source, I guess that's the prefix command or whatever. So it must be some AOSP command. Then build is this build folder, and here's the file. And this basically sets up all the commands for building, and you have to run it every time before you build, at least to my knowledge. And then you have to run this lunch. And that will give you all the options. I'll show you. It's a little different on CyanogenMod, but it's mostly the same. So we're going to do source build /env setup.sh. It's going to run. It's going to do something like this, and then it's just going to say nothing. It's just going to finish. Then I'm going to type lunch. You're going to see a big list come up. And basically, you just have to find what yours is called. You should know your code name. So like Flow, I forget which one that is. Hammerhead, I believe is Nexus 5. Anyways, Shamu should be on here somewhere. I've done it before. I've built this. Oh, there it is. That's AOSP Shamu. That's how yours should look, because you're running not CyanogenMod. It should be like AOSP Shamu -user debugging. You would type that in down here and click enter, and that would configure everything to build to those specs. Knowing now it knows it's building for a Nexus 6 user debug. Basically puts a little extra debugging stuff in. You can do just normal user, and it should trim it a couple things out. I'm not entirely sure, but you're gonna do that. Oops, just exit out of that. So now you've done lunch, and you've selected all your stuff, and you're literally just gonna do make, which tells it what to do, and then -j, which J is always means how many threads to use. And you can see here it means 16 worker threads. They typically say double whatever you have, but I normally do 6 for my quad-core Intel i5. If you have an i7, you can safely do 8 because that has hyper-threading, which basically counts as 8 cores. And then you want to do OTA package, and that makes it into a flashable zip for you. So mine is a little different since I'm not using AOSP, but it's literally the exact same. It's just a slightly different command. I'll show you real fast. So since I've already built ROMs and they go in the out directory, what I do is I do build clean when I'm making a new one. Oh, let me just do this. Open, display. So here's just a little sh file I've made, and basically what it does is it does make install clean. And what this does is it basically, as far as I know, it completely deletes everything in the out folder. Then make clobber does something. I don't know. They tell you to do that, so I just do it. I just do them both, and then I do source build env setup because you have to do that, like right here. Remove. This will delete the C cache because sometimes you need to clear that if you're changing like Toolchains, which I will go into in a minute. C root brings you back to the root directory of your ROM, and then brunch. It kind of combines lunch and make into one command. I don't know if it works on AOSP, but it does work on CyanogenMod. So it's basically, it tells it to go lunch, and then it puts in Shamu. And for CyanogenMod, that's all it is. It's just Shamu. And then it also, right after that, it basically runs this command. So it's basically like running this, followed by this. And CyanogenMod uses, instead of make, they use mka, and it basically automatically puts in the correct J level for your computer. So I'm going to run the clean one because I just want to show you what it's going to look like for you, although you won't see some of this stuff because you are, oops, let me do this. So basically I'm going to run bash build clean.sh. Obviously this is me. You can set up your own just like this, but you don't have to make any of these scripts like I did. It's just a little faster. So you do bash build clean.sh, click enter, and you're going to want to have a pretty beefy computer for this. It takes a couple hours, and you're going to want to have like at least 8 gigs of RAM on your computer. I set it up so this VirtualBox can use 5. You're going to see stuff like this. You won't see the deleted emulator because you're not making a clean build for your first build because you're already clean. Then, so this is make clean, ran this, and it'll say that. Then make clobber, whatever that does. I forget what the difference is. Does something else. It might take a bit. So I'm just going to wait. And while I'm waiting, I guess I'll explain the difference between a dirty build and a clean build. Basically, a dirty build, it's assuming that you've got stuff. Oh, see, there we go. Entire build directory removed. So it just cleaned everything out that it compiled from my last compile. And now it's going to start building. So this is what you should just see this part. Just this. And you just got to wait. It takes a while. Everything's slow. Anyways, basically a dirty build. In your out directory, target, common. Now see, it deleted my stuff, so there's not going to be anything there until it actually starts to compile in a minute, which I'll show you. But what it does is it basically detects any files that you've changed from the ones it's already compiled that are in the out directory. And if it's changed, it recompiles it with the new stuff. But if it hasn't, it'll just use whatever is already in the out directory compiled. So as you can imagine, that saves you a ton of time. Like, I can do a dirty build, I think, in about a half an hour, and it takes me like 2.5 to do a clean build. So you're probably asking, why wouldn't you always just do a dirty build? Well, a lot of the time you can run into issues because it's not perfect, and especially stuff if you're changing compiler flags, which I'll go into in a minute, and you're changing tool chains, which is a huge thing. What did oh gosh, I messed it up. I set this up for an example, but then I forgot it actually has to read that file first. So let me fix that real fast. This, you can see where it tells you where it is. Build core gcc only .make is the file. So we're going to build core, find gcc only. I know I just added this garbage to the bottom, so we're going to remove that real fast. And you guys won't have this. This is stuff I've done for my ROM, so I'll explain a little bit in a minute. So we're going to do bash. We'll actually do build dirty now since it's already been cleaned. There's no point in re-cleaning it. What? Oh, wait. Forgot my D. There we go. So this is what it'll do. Man, now I lost my train of thought. I don't remember what I was talking about. Alright, yeah. So, a dirty build, okay, here you can see. Product, Shamu, and that'll be different depending on what your stuff is. So, you can see it's got some files already in here. It puts everything it compiles into this folder. And then, at the end, since I've specified OTA package, which Brunch automatically does that because it runs a command called make bacon instead. It's just a CyanogenMod thing, but don't worry about it. OTA package takes all that and then makes it into a flashable zip file, which anyone who's been around ROMs, which I'm assuming is why you're watching this guide, will know is what you flash in your recovery and your clockwork or twerp or whatever, however you're supposed to say that. So, yeah. So, man, I lost my train of thought again. Anyways, if anything changes, if you do a dirty build, it supposedly will fix that, but it doesn't work perfectly every time. And if you change tool chains or change compiler flags, that'll mess it up. So if you're changing anything, like pretty much anything in the build folder, you're going to want to run a clean build, which means make clean, make clobber, and then do all your other stuff. Alright, so I'm going to let this go just for a minute just to kind of show you what it looks like. So it does this. This is already started. This, pretty sure this is only on CyanogenMod because I was building AOSP earlier and it didn't have these issues. So here it goes. Just starts, literally, just does this for hours. And you might not have all these colors because I've modified some stuff to add colors. And your stuff might be slightly different because again, I've been working on this ROM for a bit, so it is not straight Android open source. Alright, so that's going to be going on, and your CPU should be like pegged at it 100%. So you won't be able to really do anything for a while, and you're just going to suck up RAM. So we're going to cancel this because there's no point in just letting it run. Control Z, stop it. Oops. And stupid mouse. Alright. So now, you've built yourself stock Android. Well, not stock, AOSP Android. Assuming you waited 3 hours or whatever. Actually, AOSP compiles a little faster because there's not as much stuff. And you're going to go into the out directory, into target, product, whatever yours, maybe it's Hammerhead. And then in here you should see something like something ota.zip or something like that. I don't remember the exact name, but it'll be like the only .zip in here, I believe. And that is what you're going to flash. Now, that's just going to be pure Android, no changes. So, like, for me, on the Nexus 6, I don't want just pure Android. I want to make sure maybe that it's not going to encrypt my device. So, I would have to figure out how to do that, and there's files you can change. I don't remember off the top of my head, but you're going to want to change it, obviously. And you're going to want to make sure you know what you're flashing before you flash it. So if you just build stock, keep in mind that it's going to be straight up stock, no changes. So just be careful. Know what you're flashing before you flash it, because it might do stuff you don't want it to do, like alter your recovery and stuff like that. So that's really the hard part, is doing these customizations. So quickly, I'm going to show you just kind of a little overview of what these different folders do. And I will show you how to switch toolchains. A lot of people don't know how. And I'm also going to show you how to do a cherry pick on GitHub. And hopefully that goes well. I'm pretty terrible at fixing stuff, but alright. So, I don't know what's in this folder. That's Android runtime. You're not going to want to touch anything there. Not going to want to touch anything there. That's like all of the libraries it uses. Don't know what that is. Build. This is my favorite folder. Go in here. That's your ENV setup. You don't really need to touch that. Core. As you can see, I've added my own files. C++11. Should be graphite. O3. Stuff like that. And you may have heard of some of these things, like O3. And this is going to confuse people, but like, you don't have to have any of these files, and you can still have O3. I'll explain it in a minute. I've just done it in a way that lets me disable and enable them very easy. Basically, if I tell it to, it'll load up this file and put all the optimizations in that I want from this. Or if I don't want it, I can disable it. But I can also just add it to this file in combo. Target Linux ARM right here. And we're going to scroll at the very bottom. See right here. That's going to look a little different from yours because mine's been modified. So as you can see, it says use O3 optimizations true. So that means if I specify that, and I will show you where you specify that, then it's going to put in these flags. O3, pipe, all this stuff. And that's going to make it faster than just stock Android. Stock Android uses O2 and OS. Now we're still using OS to compile thumb, because if you go anything above that right now, it errors out and won't compile. So this could be different based on your device, but as far as I know, Android 5.0, you don't want to go any more above OS. And honestly, if you're just starting, don't mess with this stuff yet, because it's just going to confuse you, and it's just going to give you errors and stuff like that if you don't know what you're doing. And I don't even know what I'm doing, so there's that. And this, well, I'll explain that in a minute. I actually don't really know what target ARM-C flags is. I've just basically been Googling and figuring out where to put this stuff and looking at other repositories like Optipop, and that's actually what this is. I basically copied them because they're like really optimized, so it's a good base, and then I've added my own stuff on top of it. So yeah, you basically are going to want to learn about this later, but that's another tutorial, so we'll move on. Alright, close this. Go back. So this is basically where you specify all things about like building, like what it does when it's compiling, like the optimizations it uses, which tool chains it's supposed to use, stuff like that. Dalvik for Dalvik, the previous compiler before Art. I don't know if it's used anymore, but it's still there, so whatever. Device, this is specific to yours. Now, there's going to be other stuff that's not specific to yours, but you're going to find yours. So mine's a Motorola. So you're going to Moto, Shamu, then you have all this stuff. And there's guides on how to configure this stuff, change things, but like I said, that's way too much for this one tutorial. You're mostly going to have to be like trial and error, looking at other people's GitHubs to see what they did. So one thing is the board config. This is kind of where you enable these optimizations that I was talking to you about earlier. Now, normally you wouldn't have to do any of this, but it's because of the way I set it up. Like you saw, it said use O3 optimizations, and I put, now in here I put true, and that tells it when it's going to build this to set that to true. And then that enables all the stuff back in those other things. But really, just disregard this stuff for now. It's kind of interesting if you're already kind of savvy, but yeah. Just gonna go on now before I get too deep. So that's device. Don't know what this stuff does. Frameworks. That's pretty much the most important folder. Frameworks base especially. And this is like pretty much what makes Android Android. This is where you'll find how to theme stuff, like res, and this is like all your icons, your backgrounds. Like if you want to black out Android, you're gonna do it in here. I mean, there's a few other folders, like you have to change some other things, but mostly it's in frameworks. So that's that. Frameworks is very important. That's where if you're cherry picking stuff, you're going to want to pick like memory leak patches. A lot of stuff goes into that. That's like the majority of where you'll be working probably. Kernel, obviously that's where the Android kernel is. I don't know if AOSP has it there, oops, but that's where it is on CyanogenMod. Don't worry about it. You don't need to touch it. Don't know what any of this stuff is. NDK, I believe that's what they use to compile the apps for Android. Out, where we already talked about that. That's where your thing goes. Packages. This is another important one. Packages, and this, you can see some stuff like wallpapers. And this is basically what it includes in your ROM. Apps, so you go in here and you'll see stuff like CM File Manager, because it's a CyanogenMod. Gallery 2, which is the gallery. Settings. So this is your settings app, and this will be compiled and become the settings menu you use. Go in here, and you're probably not going to be manually changing anything, but through GitHub you can look up what people have changed and do it yourself. So now, one last thing, pre-builts. This is where you change your compile or your tool chain. You're going to want to go to pre-builts, GCC, Linux x86, ARM. Now you can see here the normal one is ARM-EABI-4.8. That compiles your kernel. ARM Linux Android EABI-4.8. That compiles your ROM. So there's two. Now by default, it's going to look for them named exactly like this. So what I did is, because it's actually pretty ghetto, and you're not really supposed to do this, but to just ensure that it uses the toolchains I want, I literally just rename the original ones to old, and then I just rename my new ones to 4.8, even if they're not even 4.8. Like one of them's 4.9, but I renamed it 4.8, and yeah, so then it thinks it's using its old one, but it just loads up your new toolchain and compiles with that. So I'll explain that now. Here's a good guide, and I'll link this, to switching toolchains, which is SaberMod and Linaro. Or Linaro, I don't know how you say it. But those are the two big ones. There's a few other ones, but I think most people use these. I'm sure you've heard of those if you've been around for a while, but they're a pretty big improvement over the stock GCC as it's known. Although these are both based on GCC, so keep that in mind. And basically, all you have to do is you clone a repository, and then it makes a folder that looks just like this, and you just copy and paste it in here and rename it to whatever your existing one was, and then rename the old one. So, for instance, if you want to use, you're gonna want, as this guide is pretty good, It explains it pretty much well, and it even says how you're supposed to change it, but for some reason mine didn't have these options, so I wasn't able to do that. But basically, you're going to want to use 4.8 toolchains for ROMs and 4.9 toolchains for kernels. You can try a 4.9 toolchain for ROM, but you're probably going to run into issues. And you don't want to use a 4.8 on the kernel because you can use 4.9, which is a little faster. So you're basically going to clone, and this guy gives you, I mean, he's really good. He gives you straight up just copy paste these essentially. So if you want to use Linaro instead of SaberMod, you're going to clone this, and that's your Android EABI. That's for running the ROM, or compiling the ROM. Then you're going to want to clone this one too, and that'll be for your kernel. Now you don't have to, you can just change the one to compile your ROM. You don't have to change anything with the kernel. You can do it the other way. You can change the kernel and do this for the ROM. But keep in mind, if you flash a kernel afterwards, this makes no difference. So it's only for the stock kernel that you're compiling it with. Although you can compile with different kernels built in, which is totally not going to happen in this tutorial. Alright, SaberMod here. So basically, you just run this command. It's going to copy paste that, and I believe this Linaro one, he changed his link so you can't just straight copy paste this one anymore. You're going to want to, in the comments somewhere on here, they tell you the real one. And that's really all you have to change. You don't have to deal with any of this if you do it my method, which is kind of janky, I'm going to admit. Just renaming it, because it doesn't care as long as it gets a tool change. So that's all you really have to do. Alright. And also, you're probably wondering which one's better. Exile, which one's better, Linaro or SaberMod? Well, I don't think anyone literally actually knows. I myself am kind of preferential to Linaro, just because it's been around for so long, and I mean, on my old phones, it used to be a huge deal. But a lot of people use SaberMod now. I think it's developed a little more actively, but it doesn't have a huge team. I think it's like one guy, where Linaro has like a whole company, literally, or whatever. They're like a non-profit organization dedicated to improving performance. So they're pretty cool. I personally use SaberMod for my ROM and Linaro for my kernel, because Linaro by default does not support graphite optimizations, while SaberMod does. It's kind of like their claim to fame, and I need that on my ROM, so I have to use that. But likely you won't notice a difference, but both are huge improvement over the standard toolchain, and it's easy. I mean, like I said, you just clone this. It's like a gig maybe. You just copy paste it in there, make sure it's named exactly like the old one, and just compile, like do a clean compile, and you're automatically ahead of the game. A lot of people don't know how to do this, so that's a big deal. Alright, so you now know how to switch toolchains, or at least to some degree. You're going to want to read through this guide for a little better explanation. I'm trying to keep this as short as possible. Now, you're wondering, well, yeah, I can compile stock Android. That's great, but how do I make it better? Well, that's where cherry picking comes in, as it's called. I literally thought that was just like a kind of like a slang, but it's actually literally the command. So I'm going to show you how to do that real fast. It's not as bad as you would think, but it is kind of confusing. So here's what we do. Oops, not this folder. This folder. I'm going to go back to our root folder. Now, as you can see, as I was telling you earlier, the repository command, each one of these is its own repo. Well, not necessarily each one of these, but like for instance, frameworks. This isn't its own repository, but frameworks base is a repo, and maybe frameworks AV is a repo. So within this, these are all individuals. And so what you do is we're going to use Optipop for our thing. Here, build. Alright, so this is Optipop's build folder. Now, as you can see, they go to my folder, build. So that's where, and these names are always based on the from root folder. So it doesn't matter what your name. So mine's Onyx. They just put Optipop, and then you go build. You can see core folder, libs folder, target, tools, everything's the same, right? Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put, oops, come on mouse, we're going to go to that folder build. Now I'm in my Onyx build folder, which is the same folder this repository is in. We're going to click this clone URL, click that, that should copy it. My mouse is bad though, so I don't know if it's going to do it. You want to do git fetch, right click, it's double clicked. Alright, you should see something like that. Click enter. And this basically just kind of like puts it in, I don't really know the technical explanation for it, but it's basically going to load that so that it can now knows what's going on in that repository. So now you're going to want to click commits and see what's going on here. So like, oh look, he introduced modular target use pipe. That's interesting. Or he introduced F-loop nest optimize. Oh, that's sweet. I don't have that, but it sounds sweet. Look at it. It's optimized. It's got to be good, right? So, and here you can see he did it in the GCC only, which you won't have because I've been using this guy's build folder for a while. Not exact, but I have a GCC only .make file already, so this is gonna be not gonna work for everyone. And you can see in green, this is what he added. So he added all this. And it tells you the line. Alright, that's great. You're asking, well now how do I get it into my folder? How do I get that? Oh, alright. First, I'm going to mess up my GCC only so I can show you how to problem solve. Click. Let's put a bunch of garbage down here. Alright, save it. So, I want this commit. You see right here, commit number. This is going to be hard with this mouse. Oh, I got it. Copied. Now, I'm going to do git cherry-pick. Then you just paste. Stupid. Swear this would have been so much easier with another mouse. Paste. That's that number. Click enter. It's probably going to say something like, yeah, okay, good. Alright, it says error. Your local changes to the following files will be overwritten by merge. Core/GCC only.make. Please commit your changes or stash them. You won't see this, man. I wanted a better one, but let's see. Well, let's say, no, it's not going to. Alright, well, if you get that, which you shouldn't unless you've been tweaking stuff yourself, let me run it again. Alright, so it's still saying the same thing. It's because I've changed that a bit. So let me do, what I'm going to do is git status. That tells you anything that's changed. Alright, so all those folders I've tweaked and I haven't committed the changes. And a commit basically means you bundle it up and say, here's what's changed, and this is a commit. This is how it would appear online. People see this and go, oh, this is what this guy did. So I, for instance, you can see I've modified all these files, and I've added this one. That's why it's untracked. So I'm going to say git add -u, and that should add everything but the untracked one. So now we're going to do git status again. Those are green, meaning they've been now added. And this one I have to add git add core-c++ 11, oh, capital C, C++ 11.mk. Done. I'm going to do git status. You should see everything green. Perfect. Git commit -m, that means message, and parentheses or quotes, we'll say changed stuff. There we go. Enter. Done. Now, this is because I have my own GitHub set up, so I push those changes to mine, And you're gonna, I mean, honestly, you're just gonna want to have to learn about GitHub, and it's just gonna be one of those things you learn about as you go. So now, let me go back in here. Let me change some things, actually. Okay, let's just try pulling this. So, we're gonna try this again. So now, just git cherry pick. It should, oh, come on, it worked. Well, now, we're gonna go to GCC only. And as you can see, it's added this loop optimize thing, which is actually sweet because I kind of wanted this, so that's cool. Let me try and get one that will error for you so you can show you how to solve it. Although they're usually hard, and I'm not going to go through because I'm probably going to have a ton of errors. So there we go. So I'm going to go cd/onyx, go back to my root folder. Let's go to OptiPop's frameworks folder. Frameworks base is the main one. Let's try and merge in, just pick something that's hopefully will error. There's gotta be something. Actually, there's one I know will make some issues. This shouldn't. Alright, this should work. This should give me an error. I already have these on my ROM, so it's probably going to tweak out. So we're going to do cd frameworks cd base. Now I'm in the frameworks base folder. Oop, I have to git fetch. Go back to frameworks base. Click this real fast. Copy this again. And like most of the time you get conflicts when you're doing this kind of stuff, so the fact that I didn't get a conflict was abnormal. Just going to do that. Let me go back and find my commit. I want this one. Yeah, and I can just click it here. But for the sake of tutorial, I will show you what's inside. This is the kind of stuff you'll see, meaning he removed that from that file, he added that to that, whatever. Alright, and this will also list the conflicts he had, which is sort of important. Not really. Alright, it fetched that. Now we're going to git cherry dash pick, and we're going to hit enter. Now we should get an error. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Error, don't work. If you work, okay, good. Alright. So it says could not apply to FB, whatever. That's, you can see that's the first few letters and numbers of the commit. Forward port battery icons 1 of 2, which means this is a part 1 of 2 commit. There might be a part 2 in a different section of the OptiPop folder, so you have to look for it. Usually it's settings, packages, apps, settings. Just a hint. Alright, after resolving the conflicts, you mark the corrected path. Alright. Basically, now we type git status. This means, both modified means you have modified the file and they're trying to modify it. And they're not getting, it's not seeing what it's expecting to see. So when it's going to add whatever lines it's adding to this settings file, it's expecting whatever was previously on this repository. So maybe if they had the line hi and then underneath it they had the line hello, and then they added a commit that added the line hi underneath hello, so it was hi, hello, hi, and then in yours you had hi, hi, and then you tried to sync this, it would get confused because there's no hello above it. At least that's my knowledge. It might, I mean, I'm not great with GitHub. It also will happen if there's stuff where it, like in the wrong spot, but regardless, basically it's confused. It doesn't know how to fix this conflict itself. It's pretty good about it. So we're going to go to that folder, frameworks, base, core, Java, Android, provider, settings. Where is it? There it is. Alright. Now, you should, normally, I just do Control F and I search for like this. I'll say not found because I'm already past it. Okay. In here, you'll see something head. Then shortly below that, it could be a long way though, so you have to look. See like this, and then far below that, or just right below it, you'll see this. And so this basically says head is the start of the error. And you're going to want to delete these. So you're going to see head, this is what you have. And this is what it thinks should be here. Below this line is what it's trying to put there, and what it says on it. According to it, that's what it thinks is actually there. But you have this instead. So it's like, what do I do? And you really, to solve these kinds of things, you just have to kind of use common sense. You go, well, does this, is what they're adding replacing what is already there? So if these were both the same thing, you could safely just remove this. But since this is for voice launch intent, whatever that is, and this is for lock screen enable power menu, I'm going to go, well, do I have anything else to enable the power menu already? Doesn't look like it. So I can safely just go, well, okay, we'll just remove that, move that, move that, oops, and we'll just have them both. Because they're not related to each other. Now that's, I mean, I could even be wrong right here, and you're only going to really know until you try to compile it, and this is pretty much the hard part, and then you're just going to click save. And you're going to go git, add, right click, come on, there we go, paste. So now it's marked that file is fixed. It says you basically told it, okay, I went in there and I fixed whatever the issue was. Now you can't just leave this. I mean, you've got those files in there that say like head with arrows and junk, and it won't know what to do with that. So you have to fix this. If you get to this point and you go, man, I just don't even want to fix this. You just do git cherry-pick --abort. If you fix all these and they're all green, and you want to just keep doing this and adding the files until you do git status and there's nothing down here and they're all green. Then once you do that, you do git cherry-pick continue. And it tells you that up here. So in this case, I don't want to actually do this, so I'm going to do abort. And it's going to undo all the stuff it just did. So you saw some stuff just disappeared over here. And yeah, that's really pretty much it. I mean, yeah, it's almost exactly an hour in this video. I feel bad for anyone watching it, but I mean, it's not exactly a fast thing. So, yeah, I mean, now you should be able to compile stock Android, modify your tool chain to be faster. That's already put your leg up on the competition. A lot of people just compile with stock for whatever reason, and you now know a little bit about what each folder is going to do, and you'll learn more about this just literally through trial and error. And you should be able to make basic cherry picks. A lot of the times, if it just doesn't run into an error, you're good. Usually you won't run into any problems. If you cherry pick and you do and there's no conflicts popped up, it just says, like how I did right, find here, see here. Alright. When I did it, it just said get cherry pick that, and it said that's what it was pulling. Author, date, it says one file change, 115 insertions, and that's it. No errors. That's how it'll be if you just get lucky and for whatever reason there's no problems. But again, if you do run into a conflict, you're just going to have to kind of try and figure it out and keep trying to compile it until you get it right. And that's really where the hard part is, and I'm pretty terrible at it, to be honest. So, yeah. Well, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but if you have a question, please drop a comment. I will try to my best of my ability to help you, but I am really not that pro. You might want to just go on XDA and ask people, because that's what I had to do. This guy on this page, the Scrozler guy. I'm not sure if I said that right, I'm sorry. But he's really helpful. He helped me a few times on this, so yeah. And basically, just ask around, Google, and you should be good. So I hope you liked it, and I hope this helped, and yeah, please like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and thanks for bearing with me through this hour and 30 seconds as of right now video. Yeah, I'll see you guys next time.